So today's guest is bassist Dennis Dunaway, who joins us to talk about the original Alice Cooper group's highly anticipated first new album in 50 years, The Revenge of Alice Cooper. Dennis, how are you today?
I'm good. We're all excited about this new album.
Yeah, well, I certainly am too. Listen, I'm 55 years old, so I came on board the Alice Cooper train in the, let's say, late 80s, but 50
Okay.
years is a long time. So I mean, Dennis, you're a huge contributor on some of the most iconic Alice Cooper records. School's Out, Billion Dollar Babies, Love It to Death, Killer. But more recently, in recent years, Bob Ezrin brought you back into the fold, and you did some guest appearances on Paranormal and Detroit Stories. But in looking at this new project, just off the bat, how did this project get off the ground?
Well, those albums that you mentioned, plus the sequel to Welcome to My Nightmare, Welcome to My Nightmare, Michael, Neal, and I had songs on that album as well. And Neal and I played Schools Out on the Hollywood Vampires album. So all of these things, plus, of course, getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2011, brought us together, and we rehearsed and performed. And then I released my book in 2015, Snakes, Guillotines, Electric Chairs, My Adventures in the Alice Cooper Group. And I did a book signing at a record store in Dallas, Good Records to Go. This guy, Chris Penn, who unfortunately recently passed away too young, he organized it, and we had a surprise performance by the Alice Cooper Group. And, if you wanted to see a bunch of grown men cry, that was a night for it. But that became a movie. We didn't even know that it was being filmed for anything official. And then it also became an album mixed by Bob Ezrin. So that was a big step. And I like to think that my book kind of brought everybody back together a bit because it talked about all of the good times that we had. And then the other factor is the Christmas pudding, Alice's benefits for the Solid Rock teen centers out in Arizona, which Alice and his wife are a big part of. In fact, we were doing one of those in 2010, and we were rehearsing, and that's when we found out that we were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And that night, before thousands of people that didn't know, that hadn't heard that news yet, we were ready to go behind the curtain, and Bob Ezrin introduced us and announced that we had been inducted. And when that curtain opened, it was like the warmest reception I think we ever got. It's so all of those, but I think the final thing was because Neal is a snowbird. He goes from Connecticut to Arizona in the winter. And also he goes over to Finland as well. But when he's out in Arizona, he goes over to Michael's studio, and they kick around songs and jam and have fun. And then when Alice was in town, he was joining them, and they came up with some songs that they got excited about. And I got a call from Bob Ezrin and Alice, hey, you want to do an album? So that's it. It's kind of a lot of little, breadcrumbs on the trail to get there.
So, just a curious question. I mean, again, from a fan's perspective, you look at this and you say, okay, aside from these few select appearances, either live or in the studio, it's been a long time, 1974, 75, since all of you have been together. But had you guys remained in somewhat of a communication, either friendships wise or, career wise?
Yeah, well, after the initial blow of the original group recording the Battle Axe album, intending that to be the next Alice Cooper album. But then Alice didn't come back, and communications were broken for maybe a couple of years. And but after that, then, I would hear from Alice, and, he'd come over to my house for dinner, and our kids would get together and stuff like that. And also whenever he would be performing in town, wherever I was, then we'd go see him and go visit him in New York City when he was there. So, uh, Alice and I became friends when he was 16 and I was 17, and we've just been friends forever. So, despite a few, hatchets needing to be buried here and there,
Hmm.
I think it's just time is a healing thing. But we've all remained friends. We
Hmm.
didn't sue Alice over him taking the name. Neal and Michael and I decided we started as friends, so let's keep it that way. And it's not like we didn't achieve our high school dream. We clawed our way to the top of the glittery rock pile
Sure.
and and played, Hollywood Bowl, Madison Square Garden, Wembley Pool, all kinds of wonderful places. So we achieved our dream. It was a harsh blow, though, that it ended. And if it were up to me, we would have been doing albums all of these 50 years. I mean, when you think about it, we used to do a couple albums, almost two albums a year.
Hmm.
And now we're doing an album every half a century.
Well, there you go. It's perfectly put. I wanted to ask you that question later on in our discussion, Dennis, but let me throw it out there now. But yeah, I find it intriguing that you and Alice were friends back to your high school days in Arizona. Like, what brought you guys together? What was it? Music? Was it art? Was it theater? What was it?
It was all of those. Alice was
Oh,
just the young, skinny nerd, and I was the uh, introverted artist that didn't talk to many people unless it was about art. So we were in art class. That's when we decided to start a band. Alice was the only guy that knew about or was interested in Salvador Dali and the New York City pop art scene and all that. So we became friends over that. But we also ran long distance cross country, and that'll bring you together, especially running through the desert toward a lake that's not really there and all of that.
right.
uh, and also in journalism class, we both took journalism, and we were the only guys in the all-girl class. So that brought us together too. We were just immediate friends. He was the guy that knew the latest cool TV show, and there wasn't much on the three channels that were in Phoenix, Arizona way back then. And he knew what the latest Beach Boys song was and all of that. So he was always on top of the pop scene, and that brought us together. So we were kind of like the hip nerds in school.
Okay. 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 Well, we're going to circle back on your past a little bit later, but I want to put the emphasis on the new album. But just talking about the album title and the tagline, the return album the world was afraid of, is pretty bold. So what can you tell us about, let's say, the concept of the album and, maybe what it means to the Alice Cooper Band legacy?
Well, exactly. It's the band finally putting our stamp on our legacy. We're reclaiming our legacy because we've kind of been swept under the carpet, and a lot of people that started listening to Alice when you didn't even know there was an original band. They
Hmm.
just thought we were one of Alice's backup bands. He's had like over 200 musicians in his bands over the years. The band that he has now are great. They're all really great people and extremely talented and all that. Uh, but it was different. We were Alice Cooper. It was five guys with an equal share and all of that. And so, how do you come back together after Alice became the guy who had the final say on everything musically? Well, Bob Ezrin thought the band should get together at the Teen Center out in Arizona. They have studios, they have recording studios, dance studios, art studios. It's amazing. So Michael, Neal, Alice, and I, and an engineer, just got in the studio, and we were supposed to see if we could get it back together or whatever. Well, there was no getting it back together. We walked in exactly the way it's always been. We all have a say. We all have lots of ideas about what we think every little part of every song what could make it better. And Alice, we knocked out some songs. Black Mamba, we kind of wrote on the spot around a riff that Michael had. Wild Ones we did. Intergalactic Vagabond Blues we did there. So we knocked out about 5 songs in a couple days, and so Bob Ezrin goes, oh, okay, well, I guess we don't have any getting it back together to do. So, the most important thing is we have so much fun when we get together.
Yeah. Well, you see that in the video, right? Wild Ones. I love that video. I guess it's done up at the Carriage House Studio in Connecticut, where you live. But on top of it being a cool, just kind of a good groovy kind of rocking song, you watch the video and you see you guys in the studio, number one, playing together. But also, you have your game faces on, but you look like you're having fun. So as a fan, I was like, wow, look at this. Here's the guys, the original guys, just hanging out, making music, chilling, having a cup of coffee, having a good time.
Well, that video is our game faces mostly. I think the record company, because all of this promotion that was supposed to be rolling out slowly to build the anticipation of the release of the album, it got leaked, everything all at once, right off the bat, before it was even supposed to start being promoted. So, videos like this, they had to kind of hustle to get things going to try to fill in to keep the momentum going. And that video, it is game face mostly. I think they chose footage that leaned toward that, and it kind of doesn't totally show the amount of fun that we were having.
Okay.
But Ear Music, who is out of Germany, they've done Alice's last several albums, and they've been great. I mean, they're promoting it like crazy, and in Europe, the pre-orders are number one in several countries, including America. So we kept this thing a secret for like 4 years.
Oh.
2021, I have almost 5 years. 2021, I have an email from Bob saying, "Well, let's get this going. Let's get you guys in the studio out in Phoenix and see if we." So even though it was kind of leaked early, I was so happy to be able to talk about it after so long, because I was ready to explode.
It's a long time. Well, I give Bob Ezrin a lot of credit. I mean, you think about Alice's body of work over the last, how many decades, but the album he did a couple of years ago with his current touring band, right? It was new material, and now he kind of comes full circle, right? He brings it back to you guys. But Ezrin, I'm a big Deep Purple fan, and Ezrin he's done a lot of work with Deep Purple recently, and he's really pushing those guys. Right. He's pushing these guys to put an album out every 2 years. I mean, you guys in the highlight older years of your career, I'm loving it, man, because we're getting some great fucking music and seeing you guys out there still, which is awesome. But, maybe going back to the songwriting, Dennis, like it appears like you're suggesting it was sort of a democracy, but what was it like getting in the room together? Or was it ideas thrown together on a computer? Or how many songs were written in person, let's say?
Right. So did we want to do it the easy way and the inexpensive way, where we send a song to Neal and have him lay down the drum track to a click, and then we redo the other parts? That's how records are done now. But we said, okay, no, we're going to do it the way we always have. We're going to be in the same room and we're going to record. And so to get there, though, this whole project has been, all of a sudden I get the call from from Bob Ezrin and Alice, and you want to do an album? Yeah, what songs do you want to do? Oh, well, let's do the best of the lot, And I said, oh, like the cream of the crop. And they started laughing hysterically because my phone had cut out and they thought I said the cream of the crap. And they decided that's the title of the album. But so now Neal had 20 or 30 songs. I had 30 songs.
Oh, wow.
Michael had a ton of songs. So I kept saying, and then there'd be a long period where nothing would happen because Bob would be producing something else and Alice would be out on the road and that type of thing. So it would start to feel like, well, it's not going to happen again, because this isn't the first rodeo for rumors getting out there and Alice and everybody getting excited about getting together again. And then it didn't happen. So then something else would happen. All of a sudden okay, here's the songs that we have. Let's send them around to everybody so we can get used to what we have. But I still couldn't get Bob or Alice or Neal or Michael to say, what 10 songs are we going to focus on here? Because I want to really zero in on my parts, Could never get an answer. Oh, every time you ask somebody, you got a different selection. So then time went by, and finally, Bob Ezrin says, okay, I'm going to book studio time. And I said, well, Carriage House Studios is amazing. Neal and I have worked there. Bob Ezrin used to be affiliated with it in a way because he lived near that studio and kept a lot of his equipment there in exchange for him getting studio time there, which I'm not sure he ever actually took him up on, but Johnny Montanese runs the studio and we were very comfortable there. I mean, there's chickens running around outside and stuff. A lot of big names have been in there. Diana Ross and oh my God, on and on. Tons of bands, from vintage classic bands and young bands. So it's a pro studio. So now the studio time's booked there, and I'm thinking we're going to just go there and decide what songs we're going to do and whip them into shape. Well, we walk in the door and Bob walks in with his usual, excitement and energy. He's almost like a cheerleader. and so we're gonna make an album, and they're like, oh, okay, well, what songs are we going to do? So we just started picking songs and recording them. So the spontaneity that's captured on this album, I think it's more spontaneous than any album we've ever done, because some of those songs are being learned and performed for the first time and captured on tape, which is really good. It's really good because of that energy. In fact, I was going to I even redid some of my bass parts. And then Bob said, Dennis, yeah, you can do more clever bass parts, but listen to the original tracks of you and Neal together. There's this live energy there that you're not going to up the game by putting something slick there. Like, okay, well, I listened. I said, wow, okay, I agree, totally. So so that's it. I mean, usually in like Love It to Death, the Killer era and all those, we would go in the studio, but we would know exactly what songs we were going to do. And then we would lay down tracks we'd call bed tracks, and we're going for the drums. If we get the drum track all the way through with the right energy and the right arrangement and everything, then we can layer the bass and guitars. And if you get the drums and the bass, then that would be icing on the cake. Well, on this album, we got the drums and bass on everything. Michael was in the studio playing. A friend of ours, Rick Tedesco, who Neal
Hmm.
has worked with on his Killsmith albums, and Rick was in the Dennis Dunaway project with me. And him and Ian Hunter is his best friend, and we've done a lot of work together. Michael has worked with him. We've done some live shows together. So we had Rick because we wanted to have two guitar players for the
Hmm.
energy that's missing because of Glenn Buxton, who passed in
Right.
1997. But Alice was there and Bob was there. So we just started laying down tracks and kind of choosing what we wanted to do next as we went.
Now you talk about your bass playing. I mean, the first single, Black Mamba, it's a perfect Alice Cooper song because, yes, there's the snake analogy, but there's also, when you read between the lines, there's the sexual innuendos there. I was watching the video today and I'm like, right, this is perfect Alice stuff, but you hear your bass, Dennis, right in the beginning. It's creepy, it's eerie, but it's bluesy, it's slower and it builds. But that's just an awesome, awesome track. And I know, as the time we're doing this interview, the album is not out yet, but a lot of the song titles, I can't wait in anticipation, just looking at sort of the tradition of Alice Cooper, kind of the horror mixed with satire. But some of my favorite song titles: Kill the Flies, Crap That Gets in the Way of Your Dreams, Money Screams, What a Sid, with Sid being spelled SYD like Sid Barrett, and then the Titanic Over Underature. They're really intriguing. So, maybe what can you share about some of these titles and maybe some of the meaning behind them?
Well, Money Screams, Michael and Neal, it's like such a perfect title. I think Michael came up with that. The Crap That Gets in the Way of Your Dreams is so Neal, that's Neal Smith all the way. The whole, teenage learning to play and wanting to become a rock star thing is that goes back to School's Out, and I'm 18, of course. Kill the Flies, back to our macabre, Edgar Allan Poe kind of, or Dwight Fry. Dwight Fry liked to eat.
Mm.
Why eat flies when you can eat nice, juicy spiders? So all of that, and that also lends to the horror theme of the album cover. Now, What a
Yeah.
Sid, that's a song that I wrote, which I called Green Grotto. It was a follow-up to Blue Turk because it's also in that sort of pseudo beatnik, finger snapping, jazzy feel. But then Alice took my melody. The arrangement is what I wrote. Alice took my melody and changed all of the lyrics to be about Glenn Buxton. And What a Sid is something that Glenn used to say, like if somebody spilled their drink, or something, Glenn go, "What a
Okay.
Sid." Even though a lot of people think it's associated to Sid Barrett, Glenn was saying
Okay.
that a long time before we had ever heard of Pink Floyd. Uh, we love Sid Barrett, though. Pink Floyd stayed at our house on their first tour, and
Oh.
they had to cancel the tour because Sid Barrett wasn't functioning as well as he had been before. It was tragic. The first time we ever saw a drug tragedy, and he was so young and so
Mhm.
inspired. Um, but anyway, on a more positive note, so the album goes along. When it gets to What a Sid, all of a sudden it gets more and more Glenn Buxton in my eyes because we did that song. Now the bonus tracks are Titanic Overture, but Bob Ezrin and Alice went back in the studio in LA and they added those lyrics, and Alice sang over the original track. And Bob, I think, edited the original track a bit to accommodate an extra verse.
Okay.
So, but that was also came from the what we had talked about in the studio for Pretties for You. Michael had this keyboard part. And this studio, Whitney Studios in Burbank, California, had this gigantic pipe organ built in because originally that studio was designed to do Walt Disney soundtracks and movie soundtracks and stuff. So this organ was installed by the owner, Whitney, and Michael decided, hey, we got to use this organ on something. So we decided it was going to be this gigantic organ playing, and it would be what the band was playing as the Titanic sunk. And the lyrics are the Titanic speaking.
Wow, that's pretty epic, if I must say. Wow, some good stuff there. Looking forward to it. Now comment on the album cover. I mean, it's got that Vincent Price feel, like, just lobster hands and daggers and a graveyard and a big castle. Just awesome stuff.
Exactly. Well, this artist, Neal suggested The Revenge. So that turned into The Revenge of Alice Cooper for the title. And then Alice said, I know the guy to do this. And it's this guy, Graham Humphreys, a British artist who has done a lot of B horror films, but he did, I think, Night of the Living Dead or one of those, something like that. And if you look up his website, you'll see a lot of posters that our album cover fits right into. So that has to do with all of the, Alice and I, before we ever thought of having a band, we would go to a drive-in, and we had seen Tales of Terror. It had 3 Edgar Allan Poe movie shorts. One was Telltale Heart. So, all of this, and then the Vincent Price movies, Frankenstein, Dracula, all of those were always, if that was on television in the band house, that's what we watched. So having the album cover be horror oriented was just summation of, you talk to bands and people say, what bands were your influences? Well, we had bands that were our influences, mostly the British invasion, with the Yardbirds at the top of the list of our influences. But our biggest influences were movies and TV shows. James Bond, West Side Story, Frankenstein, Dracula. So
of
Black
course.
Mamba fits right in there. Kill the Flies. It's always Halloween. The first show that the Earwigs did, that was our high school band. And at that time it was Alice and me and Glenn Buxton and John Spear and John Tatum. But we played the high school dance at Cortez High School in 1964. And that's the first time we could play. We had learned to play well enough to play a whole set. So we played the high school Halloween dance. We called it the Pit and the Pendulum. Alice and I built, out of paper mache, we built tombstones. Out of refrigerator boxes, we built coffins. And we had a guy dressed up like a ghoul that would come out of the coffin and do shtick. And we had giant spider webs that we made out of clotheslines. And we had a friend whose father was a carpenter, and we got him to build a guillotine. So that was our first real show. We had so much fun doing that Halloween kind of stuck with us for the rest of our career, and Alice's solo career to this day, still doing a lot of our ideas.
Dennis, you've gone on record to say your wife Cindy, she had a big impact in the band, right? Because she was a graphics designer or whatever. Was she the one that kind of brought the costumes to life and kind of added to the stage scenery?
Absolutely. I mean, we would shop at thrift stores because we didn't have any money, and we'd shop in the ladies section. The GTOs told us where the best thrift store was in LA, so we would go with them and pick out stuff. But Cindy found out where to get the stretch chrome fabrics, and those jumpsuits that she built that she designed were actual metal in the fabric. So when you got shocked on the microphone, man, you saw lightning. but yeah, Cindy then took over the look of the band, and it was all glitzy because in the early days we thought we were reflecting society, and we lived in Hollywood, so everything's glitzy. And it wasn't easy to talk Michael into doing that, with an androgynous look. But then when he saw that the girls liked it, then he was in. And anyway, so yeah, Cindy would make these costumes overnight with very little budget. And she made costumes on almost all of those original album covers or Cindy's costumes. Not only did she design the costumes, but, we were pretty rough on stage. And so Cindy had to also maintain those outfits, not just our stage outfits either. It was also our streetwear, which Cindy kept us all together. And she, not only that, but she got a job and got food for us and cooked for the band. And she was also pretty much our therapist, because anybody that had a problem would go and lean on Cindy's shoulder.
Sure. Sure. Dennis, you're tying the whole piece together for me. Like you to say how you met Alice, you guys were, drawn to the macabre and the films and the dark side and the horror. That's what you guys watched and played. You have your wife coming in here designing these costumes. You make these elaborate stage designs out of nothing. But then it comes to like the lyrical writing, right? Like, now, you co-wrote a lot of the songs. I mean, some of the most famous songs, 18, School's Out, Under My Wheels, Killer, Dead Babies. Then there's songs like Black Juju and Looney Tune, which I think were 100% yours. But, I think this is one of those misconceptions. Like when you think Alice Cooper, everybody naturally goes right to Alice himself, to Vincent Furnier. And they's like, oh, this is Alice. But back then, you guys were a collaborative team. You did everything together.
Right. Well, we started out in a garage band in Phoenix, Arizona. The very first song that Alice and I ever wrote, "Don't Blow Your Mind," went to number 11 on AM radio in Tucson, Arizona. We were a big fish in the Southwest. But did we want to continue being a garage band, because that was already being done by other bands? Because initially in art class, Alice and I decided we wanted to do something that incorporated art into a rock band, and specifically surrealistic ideas and pop art ideas, happenings from New York City and all of that. So when we migrated to LA, there were thousands of musicians that couldn't even get an audition, let alone a job.
Mm-hmm.
And people made fun of us because we'd walk down the street dressed like we did on stage. And we kind of were the band that people could make fun of in LA. But we worked as much as almost any other band, probably more than any other unknown band. So we decided we were going to go full out, artistic statement that's never been done. We're going to do something that's going to stand out. We don't care if they love it or hate it, but nobody's going to walk out indifferent. And we started upping the ante of our stage shows. And who would have ever thought that we would be too outrageous for Hollywood? I mean, people would line up at the exits and shout insults as they couldn't get out of the room fast enough. And the GTOs would be up front and center supporting us, screaming and everything. And, but, that's what we said. Okay, there's nobody in this room indifferent. The some people love us and some people hate us. So that's it. So that wasn't putting food on the table. So we started writing songs that were more relatable because we decided, okay, we have a reputation, touring with the Mothers of Invention and the Chicken Incident up in Toronto with the rock and roll revival. And so we had a reputation. And at that point, we were starting to draw people, but you couldn't make any money because promoters were so chart driven. Even the Mothers of Invention didn't make as much as they should have because they didn't have a hit single. They could pack rooms, but they still didn't get the pay that they could have. So we needed a single. We decided, okay, if there's a hit single, people will buy the album and then they'll hear our artistic side.
Okay.
So we went after Jack Richardson, who produced the Guess Who, and we thought those records jump right out of the car speaker while we're driving all over the country. But he didn't want to do it. Young Bob Ezrin, who had never produced an album, came to New York City and said, "Oh my God, this is the next new thing. You guys are doing it. We've got to get your stage show into the grooves on a record, and I can get you a record deal." And the lesson for that, for any young bands out there, that was a night where they didn't advertise. We got to Max's Kansas City. There was hardly anybody there. They didn't even have a dressing room for us. We had to tune up on the stairwell going upstairs to where the stage was. And, we were kind of scraping rock bottom at that point. And so I gave my usual pep talk, like, "Hey guys, the smaller the crowd, the bigger the rumors." And I remember Glenn saying, how about if we don't play and start a rumor that we did? So we played, and Bob Ezrin saw that show, and we were very angry that night. And Bob Ezrin thought that we had done a song that could be a hit single called "I'm Edgy." It was, and he showed up at the Pontiac farm after we landed the deal and everything. And we broke the news to him that it's called "I'm 18," not "I'm Edgy."
Wow. Edgy. Dennis, speaking about Glenn, the late Glenn Buxton, he is immortalized on this new album. Now, did I hear the facts correct that some of his guitar work is actually worked into some of the songs? Is that accurate?
Well, one song, it's called "What Happened to You," and I had a cassette tape that had been recorded by Glenn and I at like 3 a.m. at the Gillespie Estate where the band lived in Greenwich, Connecticut, 1973. And Glenn had this riff and we're saying, oh, okay, well, let's not forget this. Let's play it and I'll play bass and let's see what we can come up with. But we want to make sure we don't forget this. And I still had this cassette and I kept it in a good place, always thinking I wanted to do something with it. And then I talked to Bob Ezrin. With today's technology, you can clean it up, So he said, yeah, send it. So we had that guitar riff in the studio, and Bob Ezrin had added a click track to it. So there was basically the riff and then a click track. So right on the spot, spontaneously in the studio, we wrote a song to go with that guitar riff, and Glenn playing guitar is on the song. He gets a writer's credit, and it turned out to be one of our favorite songs.
Wow, that's a full circle moment, and so awesome for you guys and the fans. So, Dennis, you recently guested at an encore of an Alice Cooper show up in Connecticut only about a month ago. So, what are you guys going to do to promote this album? And then, of course, the thought I have, or the question, is, would there ever be something in the works down the line where maybe, you know, you guys could do a the original band can just get out and do a full show or a couple of shows, a short run of gigs, play the best 10 cities in America. The original Alice Cooper band playing the new songs and playing the best of the old catalog. Could that actually happen down the line?
Well, as far as doing live shows, I'm telling you, there's a billion people have asked me that question since this
Yeah.
has been,
Yeah.
well, not only since this has been announced, but for 50 years now. It
Yeah.
seems like every week 100 people ask me that. I hope so. I mean, we're a live band. We're the band. We were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Our mark on rock and roll is that we brought theatrics to live shows. So I love to play live as much as I love to record. And so I hope so. I haven't, all it takes is the phone call and I'm ready.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we're hoping, and I set in with Alice, when he comes around. And I mean, I used to go to the shows and I'd go backstage and Alice would say, "Oh, I thought you were going to come up and play." And I'm like, "Well, I have to be invited ahead of time." And then after that, it turned into I'm automatically invited up. Now, to promote this album, the group is going to be doing a Q&A. The person that'll be interviewing us, it'll be the original group with Bob Ezrin in London at
Mhm.
the Union Chapel in London, and it's sold out. But Sir Tim Rice, the amazing lyricist for the
Oh,
Disney films and Andrew Lloyd Webber and everything, will be interviewing us, and then they will play the record live, and it'll be a global stream.
okay.
So that will happen on July 24th, the day before the album is released. And then on release day, Alice will be performing with his touring band at the O2 Arena. So we'll see what happens there. But it's going to be globally streamed. You can look on alicecooper.com to find out how to listen to it, or Talk Shop Live, and through the Rock and Roll channel on Talk Shop Live, and you can listen to it via there, or go to Ear Music. So you can find out. This is going to be a big deal, and we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's so well. I'll be tuning in for sure. And listen, hey, with any luck, Alice's band is coming to the PNC Bank Arts Center in Homedale, New Jersey with Judas Priest. I'll be there. Dennis, I think you should take a ride down 95. I would love to meet you in person, get up on stage. What do you think?
I have seen Alice there before. That's going back, I don't know what, 10 or 15 years now, but I
Yeah.
lose track of time because those COVID lockdown years seem to add 3 years to anything, I think.
Now, what's going on with
But
the blue coupe? Is the blue coupe still an
Blue
active
Coop,
unit?
oh my gosh, we've all got so many irons in the fire. Uh,
Okay.
Joe and Albert and I put out our fourth CD, and also it comes with a DVD, which has like 7 videos on it, and it's called When Legends Collide. So look that up. That's also on Talk Shop Live, the Rock and Roll channel.
Okay.
So those guys are great. We've known each other since 1972, when we did an outdoor show in North Carolina, and we had just become headliners, and we were looking for an opening band, and they came on stage, and we said, "Hey, let's get those guys." And then we did a lot of shows together and became friends. And so Joe was the bassist of Blue Oyster Cult, but he was really a guitar player who he said they asked him to sit in on bass one night, and 17 years later he went back to playing guitar.
Uh-huh. Well, I
And
saw
more,
I saw the
more cowbell. The SNL 50th anniversary has a more cowbell
yeah.
special that Albert is interviewed in.
Yes, yes. That's become like its own own folklore there. And yeah, I just saw Albert touring with the Dictators recently. They came around Jersey in the winter. Just an awesome garage rock show. Keith Roth fronting the band. It was he looked great up there, Albert.
Yeah,
it's going crazy.
Keith Roth is New Jersey all the way. Come on.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we've had Keith on our show. He's a good guy.
Keith is so knowledgeable and he's so positive. Plus, he's a talented entertainer. So all is good. Joe's got the Joe Bouchard band, so he's doing a lot of stuff. Blue Coop did get together a couple weeks ago. May Pang had a birthday party, and we played some songs there. With Tish and Snooky, the darlings of the Demented of Manic Panic and New York City fame.
Excellent. Well, Dennis, this has been a lot of fun. So the new album drops July 25th. So for more information on Dennis Dunaway, head over to DennisDunaway.com for all of his information and links to his socials. And then, of course, over to AliceCooper.com for information on everything Alice related, plus the new album. So, Dennis, this is you've taken me through 50 plus years of history in a matter of 45 minutes. This has been awesome. So I really do appreciate it. So for today, my guest, Dennis Dunaway, I'm Metal Walt, and this is Metal Mayhem ROC.
Metal for life.
Thank you for listening to Metal Mayhem ROC. Check out our website at metalmayhemroc.com for information on podcasts, archives, links to all our live radio shows, and all sorts of info. Please like, follow, and share with everyone, even your non-metal friends. And always remember to keep it heavy.